Yeah, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure. It took us a long time to figure out the intersection.
But we figured it out. We made it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool to have you. Like, you're somebody that, you know, not to make you feel old, but like I've been a fan of you like since I was in middle school. Like,
Oh,
literally.
really?
Yeah. I remember me and my friend.
So it was the last comic standing?
No, it was In This Economy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
All right.
it
so
was.
that was like 2012 or something like that, or earlier?
Okay, so maybe I was in high school then.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was in high school, early high school.
Yeah.
Yes, but so my friend who I played JCC basketball with, he came across In This
That's so
Economy
funny.
on Netflix.
Yeah.
and obviously the JCC basketball jokes
Yeah.
hit very hard for us.
Sure.
But yeah, so that was I think that was my introduction to you, and then
Okay, good. That's a nice introduction.
I was
appreciate that.
pretty
Yeah,
pretty
'cause
hooked.
I think that was probably the closest to what I am now. Like my first special came out, I guess, in 2007 or something like that, and it's not really. The content is similar, but the way I
Is that
deliver it,
Boyish Man?
Yeah, Boyish
Yeah.
Man. I was so. It was just a function of the audiences you get early on. They don't know who you are, so you're just trying to get to your laughs as soon as you can. So I watch it now and I cringe because I work so fast and I'm so over the top in terms of the delivery and it's not fun to watch, but I can recognize sort of the ideas and the wording of what I like to do now, but it just the way I was performing it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, it's some of the bits that are on that are on In This Economy.
It's possible, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's some, because I've gone back, because I've listened to all your albums, you know,
Okay.
and I think, but like you're right. There is you're delivering everything much faster, and there's In This Economy there's a level of comfort that you see.
Yeah, it was all about confidence at that point. I knew what I was doing and felt pretty good about it. And it's interesting because it was so hard to come by material that there probably was some overlap between the two specials, but now coming up with the material is not nearly as difficult. Part of it is that I can get on stage whenever I want to, and then the other thing is you find your voice, and it's easier to write for a I don't want to call it a character, but it is kind of a character that is strongly defined, and you can eliminate a lot of the ideas because you think, well, that doesn't sound right coming from me. So that's sort of the benefit of doing it for 32 years now.
Yeah. But what helped you get to that point where you felt comfortable? You've been doing it for over 30 years.
Getting on stage a lot, that helps, and then just being prepared also gives you some confidence. But I think more than that is just getting on stage and then being told indirectly and directly over and over again that you're pretty good at this and you should feel good about this. So I had very good guidance, and people I admired gave me good compliments that made me feel pretty good about myself by the time I did In This Economy. So I was more confident, and that's the biggest difference. They'll tell you that all along, that you just need confidence, but the problem is they say just. It's like just be yourself, just be confident. It's like
just do the hardest thing possible.
Yeah, exactly. So
just write a perfect hour of jokes.
Yeah, totally. But then you get there and you're like, yeah, I needed this confidence. But even that it's not complete. And there are nights where I get in my head and I'm like, oh, I'm not very. This business humbles you so readily and enough to keep you working hard, unless you're absolutely deluded or psychotic. There are people who are like that, of course, who think that every show they've ever done is great, and even when they're not great, it's the audience's fault. But there comes a time when you have to dismiss some audiences and say, well, no, I wasn't able to get them. But there are some nights where like I need to write better jokes. So a combination of confidence. I think Springsteen put it best. He said you need this thing where you think you're a badass and that you suck simultaneously in order to keep yourself honest, but also in order to have the confidence to do right by your material.
Yeah, I mean, it's some combination of ego and insecurity.
Yeah.
That I think to create any great art is needed.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you have some people who have that incredible ego and confidence, and they're really talented, and that can be very special, although they're not that enjoyable to hang around with.
Sure. I'm sure that you've met a few of those in your
Oh my gosh, yeah.
in your time.
Yeah, of course.
So I think this is something I was thinking about earlier do you think of yourself as being famous?
No. I mean, I get recognized a couple of times a week in New York City, but I'm anonymous most of the places I go, and it's at such a level that it's always very pleasant and makes me feel pretty good when somebody does recognize me at the Delta Lounge or just walking the street. I mean, sometimes it'll be in a weird place, like over in England, somebody will walk by me and recognize me, but it's at a very manageable, pleasant level.
Yeah. Well, because to me you're famous. I think to my peers in comedy.
Sure.
I think
I'm
like
famous
to us
amongst comedians, but there are certain comedians, I'm sure, who have no idea who I am, the same way I don't know who certain comedians are. I try to keep up on the young comedians, and there was somebody who's actually a singer, and I read something about them selling out a stadium, and I was like, am I that out of touch with comedy that I don't know who this person is?
Who was it? Do you remember?
Noah Khan.
Noah Khan?
Yeah. But they're a musician.
He's a musician,
right?
yeah.
But I was like, it's possible that there is a comedian that can sell out an arena, and I don't know who they are. But for the most part, I know all the arena comics and most of the theater comics. But then there's occasionally you'll find somebody that they got famous first on YouTube, and that'll throw me off. But
right,
I just like watching comedy, and I love seeing a new comedian that I wasn't familiar with, and watching them, it's really nice. I'm trying to think the last person I saw I was just blown away by, I guess. It's probably been a couple of years now, but I had never seen Conor O'Malley live.
Oh, he's amazing. I've actually never seen him live either.
Oh my gosh, it was insane.
You know, it's funny. The person I was doing a podcast with yesterday also mentioned Conor
Oh,
O'Malley.
Really?
Yeah.
It's just incredible. Or I was doing an interview for New York Magazine the other day about Chris Fleming, and I was trying to describe what it was like to see him for the first time in like 2010 or something like that in Cambridge, Mass, in Harvard Square. And it was a similar feeling I got the first time I had seen Patrice O'Neill and other people at that. John Mulaney, I remember hearing him for the first time. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a great young comedian. It's just, you know how hard it is to be good right away, and for these people to be so good so young, it's really impressive.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned John Mulaney, because just on the subject of fame and being recognized, you guys have sort of inverse bits about your bit about being recognized when you were getting treatment for depression.
Yeah. And
his bit about how he was so worried he was going to get recognized in rehab, and then no one recognized him.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh, wow. How the hell can that happen? Because he's famous.
He's famous.
Yeah. And it was. I mean, I will say it felt good to be recognized in the
sure. I'm sure that seems like a time when you could really use it. Yeah.
I was like, all right, the word is getting out there, but then you're thinking, but it's people who with similar.
I love your lines. Are you crazy? Am I crazy? Or are you Gary Gulman?
Yeah. I mean, that was such a gift. I knew
that's really what he said.
Yeah, I knew in that moment, I thought, if I ever get better, I'll tell this story on stage. And that's pretty cool. But that's the thing with comedy. Sometimes you quit in your head, and then you'll think of something really good, and you're like, "Well, I have to do at least one show to try out this joke."
There's also, I think that is kind of with comedy. That's like the silver lining of every bad thing is that there is always something.
Yes.
There is. I've had this like going through breakups or like
no, it's true.
Being in like terrible situations and being like, okay, but this aspect of it is kind of funny. And
absolutely. So many jokes are really the revenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what Are you aware of like what you mean to younger comics though? Like, are you aware of the like reverence that we hold you in?
Every once in a while, somebody will say something like that, and that makes me feel really good. But I will say, it seems to me the only way you can really do right by this art form that we revere is to help the others who are younger in the same way that the older comedians helped me. Mm-hmm. So I came up in a very nurturing, in many ways, atmosphere in Boston, where there were people in my group like Robert Kelly, who gave me a leg up, even though he had only been doing a year before me, and Dane Cook gave me work and encouragement, and that was very helpful. And there were people much older, Don Gavin and this guy Paul D'Angelo, Lenny Clark, and Tony V in Boston, who were so encouraging to young comedians, and Frank Santarelli. Brian Kiley is another great comedian from Boston, and they were just so encouraging and supportive, and would give you the compliments that for a while there, that's all you have to go on is compliments from other comedians and wait staff and other employees. So it's really, it seems like the most ethical, and also I always felt an obligation to try to help out the young comedians in the same way. And then I had this incredible year where I got my first HBO special, and I also got my sanity back, and so it was the day before New Year's, and I said, New Year's Eve, I think they call it. I said to my wife, and I'd had a really nice penetrating cup of coffee, and I said, what do you think would be the reaction if I gave out a tip on comedy every day for the year 2018? And my wife, who is very insightful and gives great advice, she said, I think people would love it. And I said, well, that's it. And I went on Twitter and I said, I'm going to give out a piece of advice every day for 365 days, not realizing what a ridiculous claim that would be and how much energy it would take. But ultimately I did it, and I think that more than anything else, I was able to reach a broader group of people. And there are people who always tell me they printed it out, and they still consult it, and they read through it. So that makes me feel really good, and that I've done something to push this thing that I love forward.
Yeah, and that was, I mean, certainly, like, that advice was formative for me, because that was around the time I started comedy in 2017.
Oh, cool.
In January 2017. So I've been doing it for just a year. Yeah. And then and we first met at Vermont Comedy Club. Yeah. When you were doing the hour that became the Great Depression.
Yes, right.
And you probably don't remember, but I wonder if you can guess what advice you gave me.
Maybe to listen to your sets.
That was one of them.
To try to get on stage every night and write every day.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was read a lot, write a lot.
Yeah.
Listen to all your sets and perform as much as you can.
Yeah. Those are I mean, and it never changes. I mean, that's still something I do today. I read a lot, I write a lot, and I do sets, and I listen to them. And I mean, the thing that is kind of a limit to your progress early on is that it's so hard to get on stage. And once you can get on stage, like, I feel like I could get on stage anytime I wanted in almost every city, and that's the number one reason why I feel like I've been more prolific over the past 7. That and the fact that I have my brain back, but over the past 7 years, I've written more than I ever had in any stretch of my career, and it's because I can go on stage for a long time. I do 3 different shows in the city each month where I can do an hour and a half, and that's I remember Mike Birbiglia telling me that early on. I was asking advice about doing hours because I was headlining more than I had for a long time, and Tom Papa said, this is so simple, because I had asked every headliner I was encountering, and I remember one guy, real schmuck, he said, you got to take them on a ride. So I'd sing a song, and in my head I was like, all right, this is not helpful. I'm not going to sing a song. It's ridiculous. And And then, and this was like in 2007 or something like that. And then I asked Tom Papa, and he said, and he wasn't trying to be glib. He said, "You need a lot of jokes."
Yeah.
And that's the answer. You just have to have a lot of stuff, because sometimes an hour goes by really quickly, and sometimes you need to have all those jokes. So that was really good advice. And he wasn't trying to mess with me. And then Mike Birbiglia said, you build time by doing long sets, by doing hours. And doing it piecemeal, 10 minutes at a time, 15 minutes at a time. It can be done. That's how we do it for most of our first 10 years or so. But really, you build time by doing hours. So if you can find a place to do hours, I know there have been a few guys and women over the years who've done sort of residences at different places, and that seems to be like, I remember Joan Rivers used to do the Knitting Factory a lot, and then
really,
and she would build her tour hour or whatever she was doing in those situations. I know David Cross does that frequently.
Yeah, I've gone to some of his I think he goes like shooting the shit and seeing what sticks. I've gone to some of those shows and seen him. I love the way he does it is very cool. Like,
yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah.
So like what is a show of his during this shooting this shit and seeing what sticks? What does that look like?
So I guess I only went to one, and so he starts off and does like 15 minutes. And then he brings out a guest. The two guests on the show that I went to were Chloe Ratcliffe and Hari Gundabalo.
Oh, wow.
And both great comics. Yeah, great show.
Yeah.
And so he does a little bit of time, and then he brings one person out, does a little more time, brings another person out, and then kind of closes the show.
Okay.
And with like a half hour. But he like introduced it up top by saying like, this is how I like work out my material, and that eventually that basically he starts with two guests and himself doing like a half hour, and then he'll get to the point where it's just one guest and him doing 45 minutes, and then it's just him doing an hour.
My style is that, and it's sort of similar, but I like to go on stage for an hour with about 15 minutes of material.
Yeah.
And
I feel like he does that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but that's a really, and I like to put a guest or two on the show, but that's a really, that's a good blueprint for building time. But I also think one of the things that was really helpful when I started out was that when I moved to LA, I didn't get much stage time, so it was hard to try out something that was brand new.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it bombed, you're like, there goes that, and I worked so hard on it. So I would try out things that were new, but were part of something that already worked. So that it led to me having really long jokes about one subject. It was just that, it was out of fear, but it actually became kind of it was kind of a what do you call that? Sort of my trademark was to do very long jokes, and it was really fun, and also it was productive because I didn't have to worry about getting a brand new thing to work. You could come up with a premise, they don't like it, and you just feel bad. So that was really that LA wasn't very helpful in terms of becoming a better stand-up. I'm glad I lived out there because I'd probably be blaming my lack of exposure in LA to my lack of fame, but it wasn't. But at the time, the only way you could get an audience was to be on a situation comedy or be a movie star or something like that. So I was able to sell a couple of pilots in LA, and that I would have starred in had they ever gotten past the script. And so I was using that to become a stand-up who could get more work, and then the internet took over, and you didn't need that. And so ultimately the reason why I have the audience I have now is because I did an old-fashioned TV set, and that hardly anybody saw, but then Patton Oswalt shared it on his Facebook, the Conan set where I did the state abbreviations, and then all of a sudden I had an audience where where I could make a living and sell tickets in most cities, and so I'm eternally grateful to Patton Oswalt and Conan and the internet, despite the fact that the internet is destroying our
so you really credit
society.
that joke with like
I mean it's also it was my most obscure type of joke in that it was just absurd.
I mean, it's a perfect joke.
Well, thank you, but it just first of all, it didn't always work, and it didn't really work that well on the Conan show. But people have been passing around for years now, and you want the joke you become known for to reflect what you want to do as a comedian. Like you don't want. I can't think of an example in popular culture where somebody becomes famous for something that really this isn't really like me. It would be like if that Dice Clay character was just a character and the rest of his act was a Stephen Wright type show, right? It would be like, oh my gosh, I'm gathering these misfits and thugs.
Yeah, I feel like it happens a lot with musicians of like they have like the pop single that becomes huge and it's like that's really not what the rest of their music sounds like. Yeah,
maybe De La Soul where they had that one that was kind of poppy, but then there's stuff.
Yeah, their stuff is very weird. Yeah,
really or
I think even like
but so beautiful.
Like Yes, like because at least I mean I'm sure like I guess when they were around they were big, but. To younger people who weren't around for their heyday,
right.
Owner of a Lonely Heart, like that was the only song I knew by Yes.
It's true.
And then my friend in college, he was like, my favorite band is Yes, and I was like, really? And he was like, no, you gotta like hear their action, like that's not what they sound like.
Totally, yeah, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, I don't know if we were talking about this, but my day job, I'm a substitute teacher.
Oh no way!
Yeah,
that was my best day job.
So did you do that? You did that here, Boston, LA?
No,
Where'd you
I did
do that?
it at Peabody High School.
Where you went?
Peabody, Massachusetts, where I went, and it was a short enough time between when I graduated to when I started working there that a lot of my teachers were still working in the building, so I got to know them from the other side, and it was just one of the most pleasant experiences of my life. I loved the kids and the teachers, just for every aspect. It's the perfect job to do stand-up comedy with. I think everybody is in such a rush to not have a day job, mostly so that they can say they don't have a day job, because you don't wind up writing that much more. I don't think you should have a job that requires 12 hours a day, but the amount of hours expected from a substitute teacher, and also the fact that you don't always have to go in every day. If I were able to give them enough time, I could miss any day I wanted to if I ever traveled. So it was perfect. And also you're kind of doing a stand-up set in that you're going up in some cases in front of a hostile crowd or a crowd that's not interested, and you have to kind of get your ideas across.
Yeah, it certainly helps. I had this bit I used to do where I would so I've also like worked as a bartender, and that basically dealing with sober children is the same as dealing with drunk adults. Like it's the same thing.
That's great. Yeah. No, it's very true. But I will say that there were very few classrooms where I was in over my head. There was one class that was pretty rambunctious, but then I remember one of the students had known I knew his father because his father was a mechanic at Sears when I worked there, and so he was sort of the alpha male in the group, and he got everybody to behave. So I lucked out with that one, but for the most part, the classes were excellent. There would be some people who were going to rebel, even if they do like you. They just had to buck authority, but. Man, I love that job. Do you enjoy it, or is it? The problem is that it's difficult to get the idea of the day job being a sign of failure or lack of success out of your head because of the horrible joke, "Don't quit your day job," and there's just think of what I told you a few minutes ago, which is that I lucked out in that Patton Oswalt happened to share this one thing a year after it came up. Otherwise, I'm probably doing some sort of combination of day work, temp work, or being a bartender or a coffee shop or something where I can get insurance and do my stand up, and I'd be fine, except for the fact that I'd be like, why should I have to have a day job and it's just it's pure perspective and ego.
Yeah, I think I have some aspect of that, of like, I want comedy to be
natural.
my full-time job because I want to tell people that when they ask what I do, I want to be able to say I'm a comedian, and then I want when the follow-up is, do you make money from that? I want the answer to be yes.
But really the thing is to become outraged that somebody is asking you about your finances. It's none of their business. Sure. And I just, but that's where we live in a capitalist planet, and it's.
But substitute teaching, I mean, I think it's I think much different here than in Massachusetts. Like I'm at a bunch of different schools.
Oh, okay.
And
I see.
So
I was the building sub, so I went to the same.
Yeah, so it's.
School
I think
every day.
I've had phases where I was at one school.
Oh, that's cool.
For a while, and that's nice when it's just one school and you get to know the kids.
And what generally do you cover?
Usually elementary school.
Okay.
I like high school because it's easy.
Right.
Like middle school's the worst. Middle school they are.
Why is middle school the worst?
They're mean.
Wow.
They are just mean kids. I think that, so in elementary school, up until like 5th grade, the kids, they like you just by virtue of you being an adult. Sure. They like you and like respect you.
Yep.
And they think you have power over them.
Right.
By the time they hit 5th grade, they realize the substitute teacher has no power. and that goes basically until 9th grade. And then after that, then they're like, oh, he doesn't have any power, but like if I just am chill, like he won't, like at that point, they're like, I think they start to mature enough to be like, the good students are like, well, I have to do my work because I want to get into college. Right. And then the bad students are like, well, I'll just like be on my phone and like, put headphones in. Yeah. And so it's basically they don't really bother you. But middle school, they're antagonistic. I think it's also the hormones, like they're going through puberty. There's all these changes in their body that they don't understand.
Most happy times of any adolescent's life. But I remember when I taught at the high school, I would tell some of the kids, some of the less well-behaved classes, I would say, listen, if you behave for 30 minutes, I'll do 15 minutes of stand-up at the end. And they had heard from other classes, I guess, that it was solid. So
I can't imagine doing stand-up in front of my students.
I mean, the thing was that I had grown up in this town. I knew the teachers. I could do 10 minutes on just the local cable access and things like that. So I was able to build an act just that was so local. And then I remember I did one of the senior classes, they had a banquet, and I did a performance at that banquet, and it was one of the weirder shows you would ever do because it was also so specific and limited to our zip code, but it was so much fun. I'll never forget that experience. It was really it'll be the same way when you're doing it full time. You look back on this, you'll be like, just try to enjoy this and also take notes. It's really helpful to keep a journal or something like that. I have a friend do you know Brian Elberg at all?
No.
He's a great comedian, and he also teaches calculus in high school, and he's really good about keeping notes about his work, and he's a really good writer. So it's something you should do because ultimately it's a more complete artist who has a lot of different life experiences. I don't know if you're a fan of Charles Bukowski. I mean, he's an absolute madman, but he worked in the post office for like 50 years and has so many incredible stories of the post office, but also just living a very, very crazy life and writing about it and not taking notes literally, but writing about everything in his life, and it makes for different art because I think, and I've been seeing this a lot over the years, is that there are comedians who go right from high school into comedy, and they have very little life experience. It's if you watch Eddie Murphy, and he's impossibly funny, but the things he was able to talk about in his stand-up at 22 or 23, it wasn't very broad.
Yeah.
And so imagine how he would have been like maybe a Pryor or a Carlin if he hadn't gotten so famous so quickly. I mean, that's the one thing we have as an advantage about not getting too famous, is that you still have to work really hard at your stand-up. And I think it's easier if you have a built-in audience very, very young, who's going to love everything you do. It's not as hard of a journey as it is for people like us who make it later in life. I mean, I don't think I'm famous, but I had to do it for 25 years in front of audiences that didn't know me, and now it's so easy to do it in front of people who are familiar with me. It's not the same game. It's like from T-ball to the major leagues. It's a ridiculous irony that beginners have to face the toughest audiences.
Yeah.
It would be like if a T-ball kid had to face Nolan Ryan in their first at bat. It's just, and there's no other way to learn how to do stand-up except to do it in front of people who are at best indifferent and in many cases hostile. So I really, anybody who sticks with this has a lot of fortitude.
Yeah. When's the last time you went to an open mic?
I mean, I haven't gone to an open mic, but I've gone to shows where I know that nobody knows who I am, and I get up there and I did this in a Times Square-ish type spot recently, and I'm not exaggerating. I didn't get a single laugh. Nothing I said was funny, and it was just very humbling, and that would happen occasionally, even when I was living in Los Angeles. I would go up at the Improv, and just they didn't know who I was, and they weren't into hearing a grown man talk about his description of abbreviating the states down to 2 letters. It's the thing that you can't do is let a bad audience edit your act. So you don't want to drop something just because an audience doesn't like it. But sometimes the only feedback you're getting is from audiences, and that's where it's helpful to have a good friend whose taste you trust, preferably a comedian whose taste you trust to give you the positive feedback that you need on things. I remember I went on I was a special guest on an episode of Last Comic Standing, and I did this joke about role playing with my girlfriend.
Love that joke.
Right? And I did it on Last Comic Standing, and it was pretty new, and it didn't get a single laugh. It was really uncomfortable, but I knew that nobody else was doing anything like that, and so I didn't feel that bad. It was embarrassing and it hurt. But then Colin Quinn, I remember he happened to have seen it, and he says, "Don't give up on that." I can't do a good Colin Quinn. He's like, don't give up on that joke. You just need to go more specific. That was the thing, and that was really good advice. And that's another joke that I think a lot of people come to me and they say that was the joke that won them over. So it was good that I didn't give up on it after a 2,000 seat on NBC audience didn't laugh once at a single line from that. It was so uncomfortable. Yeah.
So you went to LA after Boston, and you got some development deals for sitcoms.
I got some development deals to write sitcoms.
What were they? What were the premises?
The premises were, one was about a guy who wants to open up a restaurant, but he lives at home. And then the next one was a guy who was a resident in a hospital. He was a medical student, and he lived at home. So it was basically my, and then the third development deal I got with Paramount, I think, was for a guy who played in the NFL.
But he lives at home?
He moved back to his he moved back to his hometown. He didn't live at home, but he moved back to his hometown. So it was just, they were just variations on those themes, but it was very lucrative, and I'm glad it happened to me, but it probably set my stand-up career back a little bit. But also there was no other way for me to make any money. So and I was so easily discouraged in things. So it's possible that if I hadn't had that type of feedback, I may have been so demoralized that I withdrew from the. I don't think I ever would have quit. Every time I try to quit, it pulls me back in. But man, it was a weird time where you could get kind of rich, not that rich, but enough where you could pay your rent and have an automobile in Los Angeles, but I couldn't get on stage at any of the major clubs, so I had to do like bar shows and the laundromat show and all those types of things. And the good thing was I got into an acting program, and that was very helpful because I became a better actor and also made a lot of great friends there.
Who is the best actor that you've shared a scene with?
Oh, that's a great question. I guess, I mean, I've shared a scene with Joaquin Phoenix, so
right, in Joker, yeah.
In Joker. So he's the best actor, but also Amy Schumer and Tim Daly and so many people on that sitcom. And then I was also in a film with Toni Collette. So I would say it's tied between Toni Collette and Joaquin Phoenix. It was an independent film, I guess, with her and Thomas Hayden Church. I think it was called Lucky Them, and I know it was called Lucky Them. And I had a day, and I had a romantic scene in bed with Toni Collette, and her ex-boyfriend comes in, and I have to leave unceremoniously. But it was really cool, and she was so nice and so down to earth. It was really cool. So those are the two best actors, the Joaquin Phoenix. But Amy Schumer's incredible too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Life and Beth? Is that still going on?
Yeah, Life and Beth is not still going on, but it was 2 years, and I got to do a.
It's a fun character.
It was
Shlomo,
really fun. Yeah, I played
yeah.
Shlomo. Yeah, that was really cool, and I didn't have to do much in terms of creating a character. I was just basically a version of myself that found his name very, very cool to. That was the choice I made. A lot of people find the name Shlomo like it would be embarrassing to have such an obscure name.
Yeah.
But this guy just loved his name. He was very proud of his name, and any opportunity he got to say that he was Shlomo, he just he loved it. I mean, I think that's I
think those were most of your lines.
Oh yeah, most of my lines were saying I'm Shlomo. I had because I would say that in just about every. It became like kind of a catchphrase, and yeah, it was really fun. And I mean, it's just like stand-up. The more you do it, the better you get at it because you become more comfortable and confident in it, and you don't get as anxious. I mean, I know that auditioning for things over the years that they never saw really the best version of me because I was always so nervous for these things.
Yeah. So do you still audition for stuff?
Yeah, I do. I don't mind. I actually prefer the version now where you put yourself on tape because you can do a few takes and be more prepared and take a look at what you're doing and then send in your best version. But it's also clear that people go, I mean, to the ends of the earth to make the perfect, like they go so far in producing the best tape, and I just would rather spend time in preparing and learning my lines and everything.
Yeah. So you've written a book.
Yeah.
You got a one-man show.
Yes.
You've had multiple specials.
Yes.
What, in terms of like the writing process for those things, what's the difference and what's similar?
Oh, that's a great question. But I think the two things that I think are most different would be writing for stand-up and then writing a memoir. The content could be the same, but writing a memoir, you can go pages without saying anything funny in the audience as long as you're telling an interesting, compelling story. You're not there when the audience isn't reacting, or when you're just not being funny on stage. You don't know whether they find you interesting or moving or anything like that. Like that's the thing with the one-person show is there are parts that are not funny and you have to be there for it. But with the book, I didn't have to be there for the parts that weren't funny, and it's just uncomfortable for a comedian to go a long time without being funny. But the process of writing it isn't that much different in that you want feedback. So with stand-up, you get it with a live show in person, and then with the book, you want to have somebody besides your editor to read it. And for me, that was my...
silence my phone.
No, that's okay. It was my wife would read the chapters, and then my friend Mike Bonfiglio, who also directs my special, sort of a creative partner with me, and so I knew what I wanted the audience to be. I knew what audience I wanted. If he found it funny, then I love his taste in comedy, and then my editor is a similar person, just a little bit removed from the comedy and TV world. So it was just perfect to have that kind of feedback. I'm sure there are people who can write without anybody ever reading, and they know exactly how they want to come across. But I think it's helpful to have an audience in mind. And I remember reading, I've probably read different things where he said this in interviews and in his books, that Kurt Vonnegut, in his mind, he was writing for his sister Alice. And so he felt that was a really helpful thing to having kind of a consistent voice in your work and who you were aiming for. And I think that's really helpful. I think my ideal audience is me at 17 years old. I was really sharp with comedy, and I had a knowledge of enough things, and I was pretty well read and pop culturally and also culturally literate enough to get a lot of the references. So I guess those are the different types of writing. The one person show is more like the memoir. It's just that when you deliver it, you have to be there for the parts where it's not funny. And then it's just helpful to have, I had a director who was able to tell me, no, it's not funny, but you have to say these things.
Yeah.
This is important as part of the arc of the story, and you're acting something out here in terms of something you're trying to prove the premise of what you're doing here. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that you've been asked this before, and you've said it, and I'm in watching the show and reading your memoir. How do you remember? Like, you have such vivid memories of your childhood in a way that's so amazing to me.
Yeah, part of it is I do have an excellent, unusual memory, but also some of the stories I've been telling since they happened. So you're remembering basically the last time you told it, and if you've been telling it once a year for 50 years or whatever, how many years it's been since my memory of kindergarten. Like, I remember kindergarten, but I also remember telling the story of the girl being stabbed with a pencil, and the boy who snapped. He just went snap, and everybody went crazy. But then this kid went on after him during show and tell, and he whistled. And I was like, oh, I felt so bad for the kid who snapped, because the whistle, nobody could get over that this kid could whistle in kindergarten. And so I've not only told the story, but I've thought of that over and over again. And it was interesting because when I was in high school, there was a show on called, it was with the boy who Daniel Stern would narrate his life, Wonder Years.
Okay,
there was a show called Wonder Years, and I used to think, oh man, I want to do my version of Wonder Years, and that's just basically a memoir. Is everyone's, in some ways, is your Wonder Years, even if it's not from your childhood, but it's basically you narrating what your life was like, and you just. So I've always seen myself as somebody who would write a book someday, and so I've been very careful to collect and remember and keep my inventory of stories, anecdotes, and thoughts and ideas over the years. So it's not a memory trick as much as it is a storytelling practice.
Yeah, but that's still interesting that you've always had this idea of what makes an interesting story. And I think so many people, I mean, so many people are bad storytellers, not just because they don't know how to tell stories, but they don't know what's interesting. And like, you know, when you're at like a dinner or something and somebody's like, oh, this crazy thing happened. And then they say it and you're like, so what happened?
Yeah.
Like, what's the story there?
No, I know. It's interesting because part of it is that I had older brothers and a mother who had a very sharp wit and was very impatient. And so with my brothers, if I went too long without telling something interesting within a story, I would hear, and then my mother would tell me, "And all right, enough," or she would make a joke at my expense. And so there was a lot of I had a lot of critics early on, and as much as I just am so sensitive to criticism, it does it makes you a little bit better at what you're doing, or at least try harder and be more careful and deliberate in what you're working on. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is there that you haven't done that you still want to do?
I want to make like a TV series or a feature film. I want to do both those things. I want to make an animated series, and I want to make a feature film. I want to co-write those two things. That's what I would like to do. So that's what I will do with my remaining 30 to 40 years is try to get something like that. I think if you are a comedian, you don't really have to worry that much about how old you are. Mm-hmm. I just two examples: Rodney Dangerfield and Larry David. These people who came to it later than a lot of, like, it seems like sometimes if you're 22 or 23, you're considered young. But to me, a comedian is considered young in their early 30s to mid 30s, and I somehow when I was 23, I thought I had a late start in comedy.
Yeah.
But I've made up for that because at 55, I really consider myself somebody who's kind of in their prime of doing comedy. So I don't think of myself as like an old comedian. I just think of myself as an older version of myself. And when I'm 70, then I will consider myself an old comedian. But we've grown up at a time when there are rock stars who are performing in their 70s and 80s.
Right.
And that seems ridiculous, but comedians have been doing that for forever. Comedians have worked in their 70s and 80s on television, for crying out loud. I don't know that we'll be able to do that because I don't know that we'll have the same type of television, but we're really in the best business in terms of being able to improve into your 70s. I imagine that. I mean, look at somebody like George Carlin. He was great all the way through and got deeper and better into his 70s. So and
continued to grow and change.
Totally,
it wasn't like, I mean, all of his albums I think are great in their own way. Yeah. But the early stuff, it wasn't like, I think there's some comics and artists of all forms who, like, if you've heard one, you've heard them all in a sense, and that was not the case with him. Right. Where everything was very unique.
Yeah. No, I really admired him, and he was a great. Or even like Mel Brooks is 99.
He's still
coming up with
ideas.
Spaceballs
2, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that coming out like
amazing.
Next year?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's inspiring.
I think he is. He seems like one of those people where like if he stopped creating, he probably would die.
Oh, that's
like I think for sure
possible.
That's a type of person.
But when you think about what a day consists of, why wouldn't you have time?
Exactly.
To create?
Yeah. Okay, so back to I am interested in the fact that all your pilots involved somebody becoming successful at something, but living at home. What do you think that was that made you so fascinated with that? Was that like a fear of yours or something?
No, it was my life.
To do?
I had lived at home until I was 28 years old, and
until you moved. Okay, so until you moved to LA, you were living at home.
Moved out, I was living at my mother's house in the town I had grown up in, and I had jokes about it. And first the Fox network, and then the CBS network and then the Paramount studio, they were like, we really love that stuff about your mom and your friends and family. And so write us a show about that, and we will give you. I probably made like $500,000 in selling those things at 28 years old, going from a substitute teacher to having to pay taxes. It was really something. Or I would always get money back with the taxes because I wasn't making enough. But I'd gotten an earned income tax credit the year before I made all that money. So it was really cool. I mean, first, the one thing is that you get that big check, and a lot of it goes toward starting a life across the country and paying off credit card debt. But I was very, very fortunate to have done comedy at that time when they were giving out sitcoms or sitcom development deals to so many young comedians.
Yeah, does that exist anymore?
I don't know. Maybe it should. They would be fools not to, because it can be such a lucrative business on the other side, and comedians are so popular, and compared to what studios and what they're worth investing in a young comedian, whoever the next Dave Chappelle is or the next John Mulaney, would be a great investment. But I don't know if they do.
Do you know Chappelle personally?
I mean, I've intersected with him dozens of times over the years, because we used to work at the same comedy club. There was the Boston Comedy Club in New York City, and we used to work together at the Cellar. And so I'd sit at the famed Cellar table with him occasionally and intersect with him. But I don't have his phone number, which is how I decide whether somebody's. I'm pretty close to somebody in terms of show business. So if I have your phone number, I would say. Yeah, but I've worked with him. Yeah.
Yeah. So because you have the two comics that you have jokes about are him and Seinfeld.
Yeah.
And you have the line like, "What is he gonna do? Make me less famous?"
Oh yeah.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I was wondering like, what's your relationship to them? And
I've
like,
never met Jerry Seinfeld.
You've never met Jerry Seinfeld.
And I really Dave is funny, and I don't like the way he treats the trans community. But he's a genius and everything. And Jerry Seinfeld, I just overall I can't stand billionaires.
Yeah.
And I've heard very few stories about him where he wasn't being mean to somebody.
I've heard the same.
So many stories, and it's just all right. So, yeah, and then when I was first starting comedy, I bought sign language, and I got like 3 pages in, and I said, "It's just his act." He typed up his act and sold it to me at a time when I could not afford it, and so I was outraged, and also vowed that, and this was insane. I said, when I write a book, I'm not gonna do any jokes from my act in the book, because it's just I got burned.
Yeah, he has 2 books of his act.
Oh, right.
Because he has sign language.
Yeah.
Is this anything?
Is this anything? That expression. Is this anything that I've never heard another comedian say besides him? I think we usually say, "What do you think of this?" or "Is this funny?" But I've never heard a comedian say, "Is this anything?" And again, if you're worried about him seeking revenge, what is he going to do? Make me less famous?
The best thing in the world would be if somehow he heard this.
No, I don't need that.
I meant for me.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah. Is this anything? Me and my roommate were like scrolling through HBO Max comedy specials,
wow.
Just looking at how hilariously bad some of the titles are.
Oh, interesting.
The most egregious one was a Lil Rel Howery special called, and no shade against him, I don't know, funny guy, but it was called funny. I'm Saying It, Y'all Thinking It.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, that was a thing. that type of expression. That
yeah.
was yeah.
Or there was
that
like a
the type
Marlon
of-
Wayans
yeah.
one. It was
There
like,
was there
you
was
know what
yeah.
I mean.
There was yeah. I said it.
Yeah.
That was I think the late Ralphie May used to that was a refrain within his act. Yeah, I said it, and the audience, just the audacity, they would just go crazy over that.
Did you ever think about switching up, being a catchphrase comic?
I love those. That I think John Mulaney wrote that whole thing on Saturday Night Live.
Did
the
he write that
catchphrase.
sketch?
I think so.
I was watching
that's
it,
one of
dude.
my favorite
One of my
ones.
all-time
Oh my god,
favorite
beef
sketches.
jelly and fur
Slappy
coat
Pappy.
Rhonda, Slappy Pappy. Oh my god.
Oh, it's one of the best ever.
yeah.
They did 3 of them. I think.
Yes.
Like they
yeah.
did.
And each one got me.
Jason Sudeikis had a character that's just a white Bernie Mac.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
He doesn't
Jason
even have
Sudeikis was White Bernie Mac.
White
Yeah.
Bernie Mac.
No, it's terrific. It's terrific.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So when did you move to New York then? So how long were you in LA for?
I lived in LA from 1999 till 2006. The first few months I lived, the studio had to put me up in a hotel, and that was really cool, and rent me a car. And then in 2000, I moved there officially, got my own apartment, and then in 2006 I came here, and I was just going to stay for 6 months to work on my act, and then you fall in love with the stage time and the city, and you meet people, and I just decided I'm not going to go back to LA, except I would go there for months at a time sometimes and rent an efficiency type thing. There was an Oakwood type place, and you'd go out there and you would spend some time, and it was very fun, and I love to go back there for weeks at a time now, but this is my home.
Yeah. So how long has it been comedy full time? That's since
December
you moved to
24th, 1998 was the last time I worked as a substitute teacher. Yeah. So it's been 28 years now.
Almost my entire life.
It took me 6 years to get to that point, I guess. I started on October 11th, 1993. And then, so almost 6 years. Yeah. And I didn't become a full-time comedian. I just had enough money that I didn't have to. Right. I didn't have to work. I didn't become a full-time comedian until after Last Comic Standing.
And that was
2003, 2004, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were just able to. I mean, I guess you said you made $500,000 on the development deals.
I was able to live
as long as you're not blowing money like Allen Iverson.
I wasn't great with my money, but I didn't have a good I had a good car, I had a Honda Civic, but I didn't spend a lot of money on a car and insurance and or jewelry or and I've never been a drug user, so I'm lucky.
What was that experience like though? Like going from, I mean, you grew up like on welfare, and going from, being a substitute teacher and like and like having no money for the first 28 years of your life to getting all this money from that development. Like, psychologically, what was that like? Well,
it was a relief because my entire life had been worrying about money, and then all of a sudden I didn't have to worry about money, so it was a great relief. But it wasn't the last time I would have to worry about money, because over the years I've been really close to bankruptcy another 2 times, just because of life and bad decisions, but also part of the part of being mentally ill is that sometimes you can't work, or you can't do good work, and so that would derail me from time to time, and so I would get in debt in terms of owing taxes, because I wasn't able to get my taxes filed on time, and then there are penalties. And one time I was able to get my penalties and interest forgiven because my doctor wrote a note about how effed up I had been. So that was pretty cool. And I went with my accountant, and then I had this really great friend and manager, Chris and Steve Mazzilli at Gotham. And Steven had been an accountant, and he got on a phone call with an IRS agent and myself, and worked out a timetable to repay this debt I had, and I never would have done it myself, so it would have just kept growing. but I had these great guys who are good friends who were able to help me through that. So I've been like Blanche Dubois. I've been dependent on the kindness of strangers frequently. Yeah.
And it seems like you like to pay that forward.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it feels good to do nice things, but also it feels just in terms of trying to balance the gifts and blessings over the years that I can try to do that. But I don't want to undersell the fact that it feels really good to do nice things for people. When I'm able to get a friend or just even a comedian who I admire, if I'm able to help them get a manager or an agent or a show or get on a TV show, I mean, it feels terrific. It's not that exciting for me. I love going on, say, Seth Meyers or something like that, but more exciting for me is if I'm able to give a booker at a TV program a link to somebody who I admire who's young, their set, and they get on a show. That makes me more happy than getting on myself. It's fun and it feels like it's your birthday, but to them it might be their first time on TV, and it can be I won't say life-changing, but they get to do this thing. You can help facilitate a dream, which is cool.
Yeah, and where are you at with the depression these days?
Oh, I have, knock on wood, 8 years and counting of a remission. I haven't had a depressive episode since the summer of 2017. So I guess this summer it'll be 9 years or something like that. That's amazing. Really something, man.
Yeah.
I never thought I would. I always thought that I would spend at least 3 months of the year in the fetal position, unable to function. But I haven't had that. Part of it is that I'm incredibly, what is that word? Diligent and. Diligent about keeping my routines up, but also I'm vigilant.
Vigilant, yeah.
Vigilant about any time I feel something coming on, I'll make adjustments or just consider the checklist of things that I do to stay sane: exercise, getting enough sleep, eating right, spending time with friends, doing some comedy, and if it gets to the point where I lost my one of my dogs years ago, and I was falling apart, and I called my psychiatrist, and we upped my duloxetine, and then I felt better in a few days. So it's things like that I might have 10 years ago I might have waited until our next appointment to bring it up, and now I make a special appointment. I don't feel that I'm being pushy or anything like that. I'm trying to maintain a. Also, I think it helps that people rely on me to feel good so that they have some hope.
Yeah.
I think there are people who, if I fell off the deep end, they would be like, well, I thought he was going to make it, and then that would make them sad. So I feel an obligation there. So it keeps me accountable, maybe.
Yeah. Wow. So you always been a dog person?
Yes, but not as much as I became after getting this dog in 2007, and then getting another dog just like him to keep him company when I was away. Then I became like an ultra dog person, and that was really special. That's something that I can't advocate enough for depressed people getting a pet.
It helps.
Even some people like a rabbit or a fish or something that doesn't require as much maintenance or dog walking, but a cat is great. It's just it's very healthy.
Yeah, I think it does a lot. I don't have a dog in the city, but like my family has a dog. My parents have a dog, so I go back.
Wonderful.
We got him when I was living at home during COVID.
Oh, amazing.
He's the best.
That's awesome. What is his name?
That's him. That's Sammy.
Oh
he's
my
the sweetest guy ever. He's the best.
So sweet.
If he came in here, he'd be equally. I mean, he'd be maybe a little more excited to see me, but he'd be so excited to see you, having no idea who you are. He just loves people that much.
That's so nice.
Yeah, but yeah, I do a lot of dog walking and dog sitting just to be able to like.
Yeah.
Part of it is for money, you know.
Yeah.
But also
but it's
a lot of it
way to make money.
is
it's like substitute teaching.
Yeah, it's to like get the love that you get from a dog. It's so amazing.
Yeah, it really is.
It's really special.
It's
so
pure and what's that word people always say but they don't mean it? Unconditional.
Unconditional. It's truly dogs are the only thing that they truly love unconditionally.
Yes.
I mean, this dog I was walking the other day. He's a foster, not my foster, but a foster for somebody. So he doesn't even know his own name. I'm saying his name. But he loves me, and he's just met me, and it's like that is just pure.
That is awesome.
It's just pure.
Adam.
So now it's time for the question: why aren't you more famous?
Why aren't I more famous? I mean, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about that because there's really no rhyme or reason. I'm not for everybody, but then a lot of famous people aren't for everybody, like Maria Bamford. But I think really famous people tend to discount the amount of luck and timing that goes into being famous, and maybe I have had bad timing or luck, but I consider myself very, very lucky and fortunate and blessed. But I just, who knows? Maybe there are talented people more talented people than me who are less famous, and there are less talented people than me who are more famous. And I'm content and grateful for where I am, but I feel like it's interesting. If one of those shows in the 2000s had become a hit, but then again, I don't even know if that would have made me famous. There are people who are on big shows who aren't all that famous. So it's just I mean, and perhaps I don't have enough talent.
I don't think it's that one.
And,
I don't think that's it.
It's not because I didn't work hard enough. That would be hard to take if I had been lazy or just blown opportunities. And it's possible that I'm generally nice, but maybe I wasn't nice to somebody who could have made me a star. I don't know. It's such an insane business where you shouldn't really feel anything any guilt or blame for not being famous. And also I've heard that's not such an easy road either to be really famous. That can be very stressful and also I've been told by Jim Carrey that it doesn't make you happy.
Jim Carrey did say that.
Yeah, he didn't tell it to me. He told it in general. My wife was telling me about this, that he said something to the effect of he wishes he could give everybody their dream of fame and riches so that they will realize that it's not the answer. And I think that's very, very profound.
Yeah, it's there's a line on J, you know the rapper J. Cole.
Oh,
there's a line.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's a line.
Yeah.
I'm not really remembering the exact line, but on his new album about it's like basically speaking on like all the like rich evil people in the world and like money doesn't buy happiness. Like something like how come they couldn't buy their way to Zen?
Wow.
And like it's really true because I mean you look at not to like get political or too current, but like this with like the like Epstein files and it's like these people like that all they want is money and power and fame. And it's like some weird sickness along with all the like other fucked up stuff that they're doing. But like that like it's clearly connected. And I was talking about this with someone yesterday about how like there's just nothing more gross to me than the desire for money or fame for just the sake of it.
Yeah.
Like not wanting money because you want to have a good life or wanting fame because because your field requires fame to be successful.
Right.
But just wanting it, like the idea of being an influencer.
Yeah.
It's so strange.
Sad. Yeah.
But did you want to be famous when you started doing comedy? Like, did you have that thought of like, the sort of what I guess is called now like main character syndrome?
I wanted to be able to do stand-up every night of the week. And back then, only famous people were able to do that.
Yeah.
But if I had been told, oh, you're not going to have to be famous, you can do stand-up every night of the week because there's this thing called the internet that you don't have yet.
Yeah.
But it'll be the thing that will make you famous enough to be able to do a show every night of the week. And the interesting thing is that, well, why did you want to do a show every night of the week? One, it feels really good. It's exhilarating. And two, that's the only way to get better at it.
Yeah.
And more than fame and more than rich, I wanted to do right by this thing that I revered and be good at it, be excellent at it. The idea of being the best or whatever people who become the best are after, like a Michael Jordan or something like that. No, I just wanted to reach my potential. I think that's the thing. And when for so long my mental illness kept me from reaching my potential, it was very frustrating.
Yeah. Did you when you were playing basketball in high school, did you have that same sort of like desire of like, I just want to be as good at this thing as possible? Yeah.
Yeah. But that
there's more limitations.
There were limitations, but also there was ego involved in that I probably could have reached my potential in basketball by playing like at a Division III or Division II college, and yet when I didn't get any Division I offers, I started playing football because I knew I was pretty sure I could get which is really delusional, but I was pretty sure I could get a scholarship to play football because there were so many more scholarships. I did, but I had never played football before, and that is kind of delusional. But I recognized that I would be a standout athletically, just because the great thing about sports is there are objective measures of certain talents. Like I was faster than people much smaller than me, and I could jump really high, and I was strong. So that was a weird thing.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that about the idea of playing D3 basketball instead of D1 football.
Yeah, if I could live my life again, I would say forget about football. It's not worth it. I'm gonna play basketball at Division II college, and I'll get as good as I possibly can. Which in anything that you put your mind to, you will. If you put your work in, you will be better than you ever imagined. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you still watch a lot of football and basketball?
No, I never watch football. I don't believe in football anymore. I've been turned off since the Kaepernick thing.
Yeah.
But I watch basketball almost every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the Celtics this year?
I love them.
Yeah.
I love it. I say this every year. This isn't my favorite team. I would say my favorite team might have been the year that they went to the finals and lost to
22?
Golden State.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then my second favorite would be the season 2017-2018. It was Tatum's rookie.
Season?
It was Tatum's rookie year, and they made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think the 6th or 7th game before they lost, and they had no business. They had lost their two best players, Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward.
Right.
But they discovered their best player, one of their best players of all time, in JT. And so that was a really special year. And then, of course, the year they won the championship was special. But this season has been so incredible because
it's such a surprise.
Yeah. It's been so awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a Knicks fan, so I'm like...
I love the Knicks this year. That was a great game for you on Sunday,
Oh, my
man.
God. So
yeah,
great.
That must
Tough
have felt,
day for Boston sports.
Yeah, I was thrilled that the Patriots lost to the Seahawks. I hate Robert Kraft.
He's an awful person.
Yeah, he's just an awful person. So anything that would make him happy, I'm against.
Yeah.
But I was so impressed with Jalen Brunson, who my claim to fame is that I gave 24 points to his father in high school. His father played at Salem High. Yeah. Anytime I played Salem High, I was good for 20 and 10. But his father, Rick Brunson, was, I think, in 10th grade when I was a senior, and he was an awesome basketball player. But his son is even...
He's incredible.
His son is a once in a lifetime.
As a Knicks fan, it's so amazing to be able to watch him, especially
Since Patrick Ewing is the best Knick.
He's the best.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some pretty rough years there as a Knicks fan.
I know.
But so he's been amazing.
I'm
to watch.
happy
It's
for
such
you.
a fun team.
As long as it doesn't conflict with my
and I feel
Celtics.
the same way. And I feel the same way about your team.
Thank you.
That's 2017-18 team. The Knicks were so out of it. I was like, this team's fun. I can watch them. Yeah.
Yes. No, I always root for the Knicks unless they're playing the Celtics because your fan base is really dedicated.
Yeah. And it's also living here. I mean, because I grew up watching them, but like living here and like being around Knicks fans, it's so cool. It's so fun.
Yeah.
Like seeing people in like Knicks jerseys in the city.
It was
like,
awesome. Last year.
Last year.
Awesome. Yeah.
So fun. Well, I think we got to wrap. I could talk to you for hours.
No. We'll talk again.
Yeah, this has been so much fun.
Thanks,
Thank you
man.
so
I appreciate
much for
your
doing
patience
this, man.
and for making this happen. This was delightful.
Do you have anything you want to plug before we wrap up?
Just my tour. I'm touring two shows, basically, Grandiloquent and then something called All New Live, which is everything I've written since Grandiloquent, and it's strong. It's nothing I've done on TV or a special or album or anything like that. And it's just it's fresh. I'm excited about it. But either one of those things is two of my best hours. So this will be my 7th hour that I'm putting out now.
Amazing.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Gary Gulman, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everybody.